Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, occasionally you come across a product that you feel like you just have so many ideas bursting out that you think this one is going to be worth it. And this, for me, this gorgeous little stamp was definitely something that I could not resist. This is the Rain or Shine from Penny Black. Now, depending on which country you're in, this is like gumboots, wellies, rain boots, whatever you'd like to call them. But I did spring and get the dies for this one as well. Well, it's actually just one die, one single die, and because it's a smaller stamp set and B, a single die, it makes it it's a pretty good price point. Don't get me wrong, you're still paying for 2 items, but pretty good. So I could not resist, and I think this card turned out pretty fun. The technique is an oldie but a goodie, creating a little bit of dimension. I'm going to take a piece of 5 by 5 inch or 5.5 by 5.5. I can't remember which one I did. And this is just a piece of 110 pound cardstock. Now I'm going to take the die and just repeatedly die cut this out throughout this entire front. I do want to change it up. I want the boots to look pretty random, I would say. Now, one of the reasons that attracted me to this stamp set as well, it just has the one sentiment. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like I have more sentiments that would go with this, but this one here is pretty cute. Times are a little bit tough for quite a few people, and a little bit might be an understatement. So the sentiment says, I'm here for you. Rain or shine, major downpour, yep, still here for you. So I absolutely love that. And sometimes this is just, a little bit of something to brighten one's day. A little nice message to know that you're here, you can support them, you can, pop a little coffee voucher or something on their doorstep, and it can be enough. It's sometimes you just need to hear that you're doing a good job and that it's all going to work out somehow. So anyway, that sentiment is beautiful, and I wanted to make a sort of a bright and cheerful card. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that these beautiful gumboots could be like a rainy, I can imagine puddles and umbrellas and all sorts, but I can also imagine plants and flowers coming out of them. I like the idea of little birds sitting on top of them. I've got a couple of other ideas, and so I just was really excited when I saw these and thought, yeah, I quite like that. It's something different than what I usually have, so go to it. Right, I have put all the die cutting that we did, I put that sheet and I did it all off the edges. I die cut them all off the edges. I wanted it to be completely random. And then I'm going to take the stamp and I'm going to stamp inside these pieces. So I'm going to use my stamping platform. That is mainly because when I'm filming, I obviously have the camera right above me. And so I need to line up these stamps with the gaps in between that I've created with the die. So I have got a piece of cardstock that is exactly the same size underneath that. And I need to, if I was using an acrylic block, have my head right over top of it. And it's very hard to do that when I'm trying to show you what I'm doing. So hence why I'm using the stamping platform. Although you definitely don't need to use this. The block works fine. I've just got the 2 pieces of paper, the one that I've die cut and then the one that I will color on. I've got them taped together with a little bit of mint tape, and I use quite a lot just so I keep the die piece nice and flat, because at this point we've taken a lot of the strength and structure out of the paper because we have die cut out of it so many times. I'm just using some VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp all of those gumboots in there. And I'm going to undo all these pieces because now is when I can take these apart. Of course, I'm going to add some dimension to this card because that's most of the fun of the die cutting that we have just done. But first of all, we also need to do some fun colouring. Now, I am going to emboss this because I'm colouring, and just because it's a pigment ink, it's going to stay wet for a little while. I'm going to pop some clear embossing powder over top of this. Just pop it over the whole lot and then pour it all off, pour it back into the jar so that we can reuse it again, and then heat this with a heat tool. Just so it melts, you want it to go nice and shiny. If it goes dull again, you know that you've taken it a little bit far. It'll be fine, you can still use it, but just go until it's shiny. And then when it comes to colouring these, of course, there are a million things that you can colour them with. I encourage you to use exactly what you feel comfortable colouring with. I'm going to use these Altenew watercolour markers, these water-based markers, and I have said I have a couple of sets of these, and I've been really leaning into them recently. I knew that I wanted to have the watercolor aspect, just because I'm going to use some water, but I'm actually not going to use water. I'm going to use a sparkle pen, the glitter pens from scrapbook.com, which is basically just another version of the Wink of Stella. Now, these pens, the sparkle pens, they come in a whole range of colors, like every color under the sun. But I don't need every color under the sun if I've got these types of pens already, which I already have, and then I can just add the glitter, the sparkle on top, and it moves them around like it would if you're using a paintbrush or a water brush. So that's what I'm going to use to move the color around. So I put the base layer down, and then I get out the glitter pen and add it to it. This gives me the added benefit that it makes them beautifully and sparkly and shiny. And I really, really love these. And when they're getting really low, and if you find that yours runs out, then you can just open them up and add a bit more water in there, and that will last you probably twice as long. It'll last you the same amount again as what the original liquid is, and I have found that it doesn't affect how the pen is or anything, so you can get a good double amount of use out of it at least. But if you want to, I'm sure I've had some of the coloured ones, but I just haven't leaned into them because I don't have the space to keep everything. And if I can find an alternative with things using I already have and save space, then that works for me. But they do have a beautiful range, and I'm sure that they are stunning and all really beautiful to use. If you wanted to, you could also use some alcohol markers. That would also be stunning for colouring, and I think you could get some really nice shading and things going on. Absolutely beautiful. Now, just do what you can. I am going to take a dark grey colour here, and I just add a little bit on sort of either end of the boots, and then I'm going to use the glitter pen to bring the colour into the centre and fill that in. My shading and all that is nothing to write home about, but it does the job, and I think they end up looking pretty good. I basically went for sort of primary colours. So the three primary colours are yellow, blue and red, and they are all going to, I think they look quite nice together, but of course instead of the red I went for the pink, and instead of the blue I guess it would be like a tealy turquoise, but I still think they look like a really nice combo all together. And then I just repeated those colours, and then I need a frame, but I don't have square dies big enough, so I create my own. Of course, I'm going to take the same size piece of cardstock, so I think it was 5.5 inches, I'm thinking, and then I'm going to use my trimmer to just cut down mainly most of the way, but then I just use my little fussy cutting scissors and I just finish off those cuts so that they can get right into the corners. If I were being more precise about it, I'm sure I could do it and work it out, but this works just as well for me. So I've done this with a white to get a nice white border, but then I actually want to do the same thing with a black one because I want there to be a little bit of black in the border, just a smidgy smaller than what this frame size is. If you have square frame dies that are big enough, then that's going to be your answer here. And you could always do this, with a rectangle or with a circle. That would also look stunning. You could absolutely turn this into a shaker card by putting some acetate on the back of the one that we die cut as well. That would also look gorgeous. And in fact, that would be a fun option actually for these gumboots. Let's keep that in mind. Anyhow, I'm going to do the same with the black, and I just cut the border a little bit further in than I did with the white. So exactly the same process, but a little bit further in. And then you'll see here in a second, when I line these up together, you'll see that the black just goes in a little bit further, and it creates just that extra layer. I really like this look, especially when you're doing sort of a white on white look, which I'll have a white frame with a white backgrounded project. So I think that looks good. And then I just glue these together nice and flat, no dimension in between these two. They look really nice. As I said, with square frame dies, this would be a whole lot easier, but that's okay. And then I'm laughing here because I will show you the truth. I could have edited out all these bits and pieces, and that's the beauty of the part that I get to do. I don't get to show you all my bloopers, even though I do try and keep a good amount of them in, just because it's, we all have them, we all do them, and we all have to do workarounds. But let me tell you, look at the scraps of paper all around me. I think I had to stamp this like 5 or 6 times at least to just get this right. It wasn't the stamp at all. It was completely me, and then I cleaned the stamp with something that I just reached for a paper towel, and then the little bits of the paper towel got stuck on it, and I should have used my microfiber cloth. you know, it's okay. Right, I cut this out and I cut it just with my long bladed scissors to get nice clean edges. You could use your trimmer. And then just to make it look a little bit more fancy, because I hadn't used a die, I just do a tiny wee snip off each one of the corners. And then I'm going to do the same thing with a black outline, just because, again, it would sink in a lot if not. And then I just do that tiny wee snip, and I think this just gives it that little bit of elevated look from a plain rectangle without having to use a die. And then let's put everything all together. As I said, I love that sentiment. I'm going to pop some foam tape on the back of this piece here. Now I have the 1 inch and I have the 1/4 inch, and I'm going to use the 1/4 for this one. This is the 1 millimeter. They sell it in 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, and 3 millimeter. So if you want a really thick, good bit of dimension, you can use the 3 millimeter tape. Or you can just triple up the 1 millimeter tape. And again, that's one of those things that just saves me space in my craft space. I don't have a whole lot of space, and I don't need a whole lot of things. I feel like that clouds my mind when I'm creating sometimes. Sometimes I'm more of actually all the time, I'm a less is more kind of person when it comes to creating. Now, I lost a little bit of footage there and realized I hadn't pressed record, but I put the foam tape on the back, and then I just added the border that we created, the frame, right on top of it. And this is a gorgeous card. Now, the only thing, the camera doesn't pick up the shine on the boots as well. If you wanted to, you could just stamp and color these and do this with like glossy accents on top. I think that would look stunning. But I do like the fact that I went with the cutout with the dies. It actually looks very cool in person, and you can see the photos at the end. It shows it a lot better. Just the dimension, it's absolutely beautiful. So I've actually already given this one to a friend, and yeah, I was really happy how this turned out. So a little bit of good old-fashioned techniques are still perfect to use. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. And I loved creating this card. I love card making, and I love the time that I spend doing it. So I hope that you've enjoyed watching. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for leaving those beautiful comments. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thanks. Bye.